Okay, everybody, so today I will explain the basic tools that you are going to use for solids in Rhinoceros. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to choose small objects, centimeters, for the work that we're going to do today. So on Rhinoceros, I want you to choose from the list small object centimeters. Okay, now we have our 4 viewports, and just as a reminder, remember that you always draw on the top, front, and right view of your software. Now on the left side we have some tools, okay, that we're gonna see today. One of them is the selecting or deselecting tool, like cancel or cancel all. If you use left click, you cancel what you're doing, and right click, you cancel everything. So what we are going to do is that I'm going to create a very small sphere. Okay, and this sphere I can select it, and using the deselection tool, just click on it and it will come back to normal. Sometimes when you're in the middle of the process, you want to do this. Okay, now we are going to select the sphere and we are going to delete it. Okay, now on the bottom part, like below this option, we have the polyline tool. This is for creating polylines or line segments. Okay, now if you use the normal click, the left click, we can create a polyline. Before we start drawing on the top view, we are going to go to the bottom part where it says Snap, Ortho, Planner, OSNAP, and Record History. Now if you want to draw on the plane, and make sure that you're drawing on the plane, like the XY plane or the YZ plane, then you need to activate Planner. Snap is used for the cursor to stick to the grid. So you have the grid and you have the cursor like going around. Well, if you want to be precise on your measurements, you can make it stick to the grid. That way you'll know how many centimeters you're doing your shapes. So I'm gonna draw on the top view, starting on the 0, 0 coordinate, where is the intersection of the green line and the red line. That's the 0, 0 coordinate. I'm gonna click there, okay, and I'm gonna make the polyline. So I'm gonna make a square 10 by 10. Okay, 10, and finish where I started. Okay, now as you see on the perspective view, I have a square that was drawn on the surface of the XY plane. Okay, it's not a solid, it's just a curve, so it has no dimensions. It's just a curve. Just like drawing a polyline, you can also make curves. Now on the right of this option, you can see the control point curve. Now if we click on it, we can make curves on the top view, and they will be drawn, of course, on the floor. See? So you have a curve that you drew on the floor. Now what happens if I want to draw another curve but on the XZ label, okay, on the XZ plane? Now on the XZ plane, I can draw on the front view and I'll be making a curve. So I made a curve on the plane, on the ground, and on the plane. Now I have another plane that is the YZ. Now that would be the right view. If I want to make a curve over here, I can also draw, and it will be on another plane. So here I have my 3 planes and where I have my 3 curves. Okay, you can see that on the perspective. Okay, now I am going to erase all of my curves. So I'm going to select the top. On the top view, I can select all of them. As you see, the top view, you can only see the curve that was drawn on the top view. You look at a line, which one is on the right view. That's the curve. You see it from the top view as a line, and you also see the front view as a line. That's why, because they're always perpendicular to each other. So we're going to erase all of those. Okay. Now, underneath those two tools, you have also the circle tool. Okay, you can create a circle, and you can specify the radius. Now, on the top, on the command line, you see that it says radius and diameter. What we are specifying here is the radius. That's why it's bold. If you want to specify the diameter, then you click on diameter and give the measurement that you want. So I want a radius of 5, so I type on the command line 5, and then I press enter. Okay, now I can see that I have a circle here, and it's very important that you read the command line every time that you select a tool, because they will give you the process for building the solids, or extruding the curves, or creating the surfaces or polysurfaces. So on the left, on the right of that tool, you also have an ellipse. Okay, so here you just need to do 3 clicks. I'm always drawing on the top view, and I have my ellipse tool. Okay, now we also can make arcs. You can also make an arc. This is a 90-degree arc, or an arc segment of the whole circumference. And you can also make rectangles. Okay, from the tool next to the arc. Now the rectangle, each tool has some arguments that you can change. You can make a rectangle starting from the center. You can make the arc starting from a segment point, and they have different arguments. So you can change the way you draw these shapes. Now underneath that, we have the polygon, and the polygon has some other options, some other arguments. Now on the command line, it says number of sides. You can change the number of sides for this polygon depending on what you need. Okay, and of course we also have the fillet curve option that we will use later to fillet the curves of different shapes. Okay, now before we continue, there's something very important. The selection tool on Rhinoceros is different to select from right to left than from left to right. Why is this? When you select from right to left, as I'm doing right now, everything that is touched by the range of the rectangle that I'm doing will be selected. In this case, the polygon and the arc are touched, so they will be selected. Okay, I use the deselection tool, and it's different when I select from left to right. Now when I select from left to right, only the things that are inside the rectangle will be selected, not touched. So in this case, only the oval, the ellipse, and the rectangle will be selected. Everything else that at least was part of it outside won't be selected. This is very handy when you need to select only a few things and leave others without a selection. Okay, so that is a very important tool. Okay, now after we finish this, you can erase again your shapes. It's important that you do this exercise, even though we're erasing them at the end, because it's a practice tutorial. Okay, so now I'm gonna jump into creating solids. Now when I create solids, I can click and hold on the box, and the first one that I'm gonna do is a box. Okay, and on the box I'm gonna start creating it on the top view, starting on the coordinate 0, 0. Now on the bottom part you see the X and the Y. That is the coordinate location on the coordinate plane. So I'm going to start on 0, 0, and I'm going to make a box 10 by 10 by 10. So I click on the 10x 10y, and then I go to the front view so I can establish the height. I can establish the height of my box. Okay. Now, if you want to see this better, you go to Ghosted, so you can see the box created, the polysurface created. Okay. Now that's how you create a very simple cube on this software. The same thing we can do with any other solid or basic solids. So I'm going to create a sphere next to my cube, and it's going to be a single sphere with a diameter of 5. Okay, so I remember that I can put it on the command line, type in 5, and then press enter. So now I have my sphere next to the box. I can also create an ellipsoid. Okay, I can create an ellipsoid. So on the command line it says where's the center of the ellipsoid, so I'm going to put it over here. I need to click then the end of the first axis of the ellipsoid. Okay, that way I can create the ellipse, and then with the third click we can establish the end of the third axis, because it's a solid, just like a football. So I go to the front view and establish the height. Okay, so here I have my ellipsoid. Okay, that is a solid. Now the same thing I can do with a cone. Okay, I'm going to do the cone also with a radius of 5. And then on the front view, remember that you can zoom in and zoom out with the scroll button so you can see. And with a right click, you can move around the viewport. So on the front view, I can establish my height. Okay, all the heights for these solids are 10. Okay, very good. Now we can continue with another solid that it's a pyramid. So I'm going to draw a pyramid over here, and the pyramid, I can change the number of sides, so that is very important. Right here on the arguments, you can change the number of sides. So I'm going to make a 4 side base pyramid. In this case, it's going to be below the box. Okay, and then on the front view, I can put my height. Okay. So here I have different shapes. Now if you select, you can move them around. Okay? It's very important that you always move your objects on these 3 viewports, because if you move them from the perspective view, it's going to be more difficult. Okay? You're not going to know exactly where to put them. Okay, now we have the 4-sided pyramid. We also have a truncated cone. Okay? We're going to create a truncated cone, and the truncated cone also works like a cone in the bottom, and then it's truncated on the top. So a 5 centimeter radius, and then on the top I can see how much I want it truncated. Okay, so that would be like the inner radius. The inner radius can be like this. So that is a now the constructions of these shapes will help you create any object that you like the combination of the shapes. Then the union of these shapes, or the Boolean difference of these shapes, will create a whole object. Okay, so we have these. We also have the cylinder that you developed on the first tutorial. Okay, and we also have the tube. Now I'm going to make a tube. The tube has 2 different radius. Now you have the outer radius and the inner radius. After you establish those 2, you can go to the front view or the right view and create and establish the height. Okay, so here we have a tube. Okay, Now another object that you can create, it's a torus. Now the torus, it's like a donut. So first on the top view, I create like the diameter of the torus, and then on the second click I can see how thick this torus will be. Okay, so I can make it look like a lifesaver. Okay, so you only have to do 2 clicks. Very good. Okay, so we have all of our solid or basic solids. The rest of them are using the curves that we mentioned before. You can always play with curves and then try to see what these options are for. Now, the combinations of these solids will help you create new objects. Now, the only thing that we're missing is that on the front view, as you can see, the sphere, the ellipsoid, and the torus have half of its object underneath the ground. Okay? Underneath the ground is like when you look at the ground, they are buried, half of them. So we need to move them. Every time that you don't see one of the objects, it might be hidden underground. So you can select the ellipsoid and just pull it up. Okay? Select and pull it above the ground so you can look at them better. Okay, now we have all our shapes, and we can organize them if we want. So I'm going to organize my shapes from the top view because I only want them to move on the top view. I don't want them to move up or down. So I can organize them a little bit better so I can see them. Okay, so here we have our objects. You guys can develop this and of course upload it to our web page. So I hope you liked it and you can start playing with all the tools.